I'm your Gemini friend. This video is going to be about Lilith. So with Lilith, there are several different options, placements for different Liliths that we can look at, and I will clear that up as far as the difference between Black Moon Lilith, Dark Moon Lilith, the Asteroid Lilith, what all of these can possibly mean in your chart. And I do offer natal chart readings and synastry chart readings if you're interested in my take on your chart. But first, let's just go over what the essence of Lilith is, what she wants us to know and find within ourselves. Because ultimately, this energy is about reclaiming feminine power, because feminine energy has been so repressed and rejected within humanity for so long. And Lilith is all about embracing that power, finding the power within us. And when I'm talking about feminine and masculine energy, it has nothing to do with male and female. Think of masculine as it's Mars, pursuit, extroversion, feminine, attraction, Venus. It's less about doing and more about feeling and intuition. This is our collective intuition and the very idea of spirituality and allowing ourselves to be led and guided by our own inner sense of guidance. And everyone has a combination of the two. Ideally, an equal balance is what we should all be representing together. But we have massively overdeveloped masculine energy just within society. We put it on a pedestal. So when we're looking at the story of Lilith, you've likely heard this story where Lilith is the first wife of Adam, but she refuses to submit and she's rejected and replaced by Eve, the safer, more obedient, acceptable version of feminine energy. Lilith and the very concept of repressed feminine can be directly related to gender identity and sexual preference, and it's no coincidence that as we move in the direction of more freedom, we're getting more variation here, more people being able to express themselves in more unique ways, and just variety. We're escaping the constructs of this duality-based planet. But our true nature as a collective is one of love and acceptance and perfectly balanced feminine and masculine expression. Not that there's anything wrong with adhering to the binary, be yourself. Ultimately, that's the message, be yourself, because Lilith wants us to stop focusing on what is wrong with us, what makes us feel like we're not enough, like we're not being enough, we're not doing enough. She wants us to stop worrying about being acceptable and appeasing society and the people around us. She wants us to break down these constructs and just be allowed to be sometimes. And overdeveloped masculine energy without the balance of the feminine, this leads to overcompensation, an excessive focus on productivity, and ultimately burnout. Because we need nurture and self-care and self-love. We need to take care of ourselves so that we can do whatever it is that we want to do. Because if the masculine doesn't have the support of the feminine, he becomes insecure and works even harder to try to prove himself. And I only say he and she for simplification of these energies. But this masculine is unable to sit in stillness and go within because that feels unproductive when it's actually our greatest tool, our inner knowledge. We receive this by embracing the feminine. Our magic hasn't just been hidden from us, it has been shamed into suppression. You can't attract, you have to pursue, you have to work for it, you have to exhaust yourself, and not all of us are built that way. If we're simplifying, let's just say half of us aren't. And these are the healers and the nurturers and the support system for the collective soul. Lilith wants us to stop feeling bad about this, about whatever it is that you're feeling bad about that's true to you, because it doesn't do any good to reject our connection to inner wisdom and knowledge, because we all know knowledge is power, and if we don't have it, we can be controlled. But there's guilt and shame that are associated with these feminine things. Think of how not so long ago the idea of a man in a dress was shameful, which is ridiculous. We're encouraged to work as much as we possibly can, take as little bit of a break as we possibly can, and just keep going. This isn't sustainable. And this is ultimately how I see this energy. Of course, you're going to have your sign, your house, and whichever Lilith you're looking at to really like hone in on what this is for you. And I'm thinking about making a series on Lilith and all of the signs and houses. So let me know if you're interested in that, or if you're like super not interested in that and would rather I wouldn't. But let's look at what Black Moon Lilith is, the classic Lilith, like when we're talking about Lilith. This is, and please forgive me if I'm not getting anything technically correct, I'm just not a math person. I'm about the energies. But this is the apogee of the moon, which is the point of like where it's revolving around the earth. It's the orbit point that is the furthest away. So with this Lilith, we have two options. We have the osculating and the mean. The mean is more of an average of this calculation. It's less specific. But when it comes to interpreting it, I find that this can be the most useful one, the most like truly Lilith, because what that averaging does is it kind of sums up the theme within your life in a more overall and useful way. While the more specific, the osculating, where it's taking into account Earth's like natural shape and gravity, factoring in all of that and getting the exact point of where it was when you were born. So obviously this can also be very useful. It's like your the precise exact point where Lilith was when you were born. This is also very meaningful. And these two are usually not more than like 5 to 20, maybe a little more than that, degrees apart, but they're not going to be incredibly off. My osculating Black Moon Lilith is at 11 degrees Taurus, while my mean Lilith is at 5 degrees. And the significance that I see between the two of these is that the mean Lilith for me is conjunct my Mars, which does seem like a very overall theme in my life, but it's also helpful to look at the exact point. So this is Black Moon Lilith. This is the whole encompassing idea of the initial wounding, what we go through because of it, the healing process, and like full integration. This is complete Lilith. The asteroid Lilith is also very interesting because it can represent like the very initial wounding, like the first stage where we are initially rejected or shamed, and what that connects to within us. This is Lilith at her most hurt before she's even run away. So this point is not as useful for healing of it, but it can be very helpful to know the origin of the wound. And if you're curious, the number for this asteroid is 1181, if you'd like to include that in your chart. And interestingly, this asteroid was named after a French prodigy composer. Her name was Lily Boulanger. I don't know French, but she died young, and there's just an interesting connection here with the asteroid representing this early stage and then the person who it's named after. But you can think of this as like the first step Lilith. And then most contested, the second point Lilith would be the dark moon Lilith. This is also called the Waldemath moon, and it is not even proven. It's been seen a few times, but it's a ghost moon. This I can't put too much stock in, but it's still very interesting. And what it represents within this progression of Lilith is running away and either plotting revenge, tending to her wounds, and processing. This is after the pain, living and existing in the pain, and like, what are we gonna do with it? So you can look at where this is for you and consider what it represents. But of course, we go into the third phase of Black Moon Lilith, and we're able to heal and integrate, or, you know, get your revenge, whatever. But the idea is to take the distorted, rejected parts of us and turn it into a natural, healthy relationship with that part of us. And of course, without specific placements, it's hard to explain what this could possibly be on an individual level. But if you'd like an example, I can use my Taurus Lilith and give you something that makes sense to me. So 2 scenarios, okay? In both of them, you want cake. So in one, you're like fighting with yourself in your head, like, no, I'll be good. I really want it, and I'm gonna keep thinking about it, but no, I shouldn't. You're fighting with yourself. You're rejecting this impulse for indulgence, feeding yourself. This is feminine energy. And you know what? You eat the cake, and then you feel guilty about it. You feel bad. You think about it. You imagine the effect that it's going to have on your body, and you exist in this shameful, negative feeling. In the other scenario, you happily accept the opportunity to eat cake. You welcome the cake into your body with love and gratitude, and then you go on about your day and you don't dwell on it. So which of these scenarios encourages a toxic relationship with food in your body? And which of these results in having an unbalanced and guilt-based way of feeding yourself, something completely natural and essential? What I'm saying is Lilith wants you to eat the cake sometimes, in moderation, when it's good for you. Ultimately, she wants you to heal your relationship with whatever it is, whatever this toxic cycle is within you, whatever you are like impulsively drawn towards, but you shame yourself for wanting it. This does not have to do with food in all situations. It's just the easiest example that I could think of. But Lilith doesn't just want us to indulge. She wants us to take care of ourselves and intuitively develop this intuitive sense of when things are good for us and when they're not. We're getting rid of these unhealthy, toxic relationships that we have with the things that we like. It's this disconnect, the disconnect between intuitively being able to do things without worrying you're going to overdo it, worrying about what other people are going to think. If it's true to you, just do it. Develop that connection and the ability to know when and what is going to be good for you and when, because situations are always changing. If you allow yourself to eat the cake, sometimes you'll want carrots too. Ultimately, we have to get out of the shame and just expose ourselves to the things that we want but don't want to want. Because who is the one telling you to not want to want it? It's external, but you're the one in charge with your relationship with what you want. I hope that this is making sense, because this applies to everything and it's applicable to everyone in some way. Whatever feminine impulses are within you, represented by your sign and house, these are the things that you want to examine your relationship with them and examine the cycles and the patterns. That's the mean Lilith, patterns and cycles and themes. It's long term, because you've likely had these themes throughout your life, and we want to break free. Lilith wants you to break free. And this does take, sometimes we have the wounding and we have to get away and we have to deal with it and we have to heal. But the more that we heal our collective feminine wounds, the more the collective feminine wound is healed. This is why it's so important to do work on yourself. Because even if you're thinking about this like it's coming from a selfish place, why would I just focus on myself? Why would I nurture myself? That's selfish. But it's not selfish. It's working for everyone. When you heal parts of you, other people have these placements too. Other people struggle with these things. You're never the only one struggling with your issue. There are so many people. And of course, your situation is unique to you, but somebody can always relate. And the more that we heal within ourselves, our collective connection to everyone else, especially within that same energy as you, we're contributing to healing the wound that everyone is suffering from. So the more that you focus on your feminine, and this doesn't just have to be your Lilith placement, just feminine energy in general, since half the signs are feminine, half of everything is inherently feminine, it's just rejected. But you're not just healing for you, you're healing for all of us. And this is just so urgent right now. You see so much just political, like making expression of love and of self into something that's an issue. That's because Lilith is rising and she wants us to work on this. She needs our help. And it's just crazy that she has been associated with like really terrible things throughout history. The very concept of Lilith, when she is a fighter, fighting for herself and for us. She's been demonized because somebody's afraid of feminine power. So that's what I have to say on the subject. It's very fascinating for me. Let me know what you think and your relationship with your Lilith placement or placements, because it's one of the most important things to me. Even just the rise of spirituality, astrology, and the tarot, talking about all of these things. This is feminine power. This is improving our connection. And eventually everyone will be able to connect in the way that only some people can now. That's the goal. Perfectly balanced masculine and feminine. Outside of you and inside of you. So thank you for watching. I love you. Bye.